6 bodies and 154 cremated remains. That's how many deceased loved ones were found in this Hayward warehouse. Now the Alameda County Coroner's Bureau says they're working to reunite the remains with families in 15 different counties.
Some of the families paid to have their loved ones, their remains scattered at sea, and that clearly didn't happen in a lot of these cases.
The warehouse is linked to Ocean View cremations. The sheriff's office says the bizarre investigation started after several complaints from customers to the California Cemetery and Funeral Bureau. Yelp reviews accuse the company of waiting months to cremate bodies, holding ashes for years, and refusing to return customers' calls after taking their money. According to the Bureau, one customer allegedly got the wrong remains.
If they did business with Ocean View between 2013 and 2021, it's likely we may have remains that belong to them.
Ocean View's business license was suspended in 2018 and again this past January. But according to the Alameda County Sheriff's Office, even when they were licensed, they were never allowed to store remains in their Hayward warehouse. The Coroner's Bureau seized all remains March 1st, but today we spoke to a customer who said he was still doing business with them.
I'm completely at a loss there. So it sounds like those are potentially new remains and that they're continuing to do business.
So far, 5 of the bodies have been identified. A 6th body has a tentative identification. But out of more than 150 other remains, the Coroner's Bureau has only been able to identify 6 family members. Ocean View did not answer the door at the warehouse today or our calls for comment. The state is investigating. However, it's unclear if the owner will face any criminal charges.
For the many, many families who placed, countless telephone calls to the business and got no final disposition as to what happened to their loved ones, it's providing them some closure.
In Hayward, Felina Jones, NBC Bay Area News.
Donald Trump criticized his former Vice President Mike Pence yesterday for his comments on Saturday, saying history would hold Trump accountable for his actions on January the 6th. The Washington Post reports that Trump, while on a plane heading to Iowa, told reporters, quote, had he sent the votes back to the legislatures, they wouldn't have had a problem with January the 6th. So in many ways, you can blame him for January the 6th. Had he sent them back to Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, the states, I believe, number 1, you would have had a different outcome. According to the Post, Trump then criticized the bipartisan legislation passed in December that clarified the role of the vice president in certifying the electoral votes for president. Trump also suggested Pence's criticism of him is because of low poll numbers for a likely 2024 campaign, saying, I guess he figured that being nice is not working, but, he's out there campaigning and he's trying very hard and he's a nice man. I've known him. I had a very good relationship until the end. Yeah. Well, let's bring in NBC News.
And ABC News business reporter Alexis Christoforous joins me live now for more on this. Alexis, what do you make of how bank stocks are performing today?
Well, as Rebecca said, we're seeing this really big rebound now in the regional stocks, but also the bigger stocks, too. JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, Wells Fargo, all bouncing back. I think investors just had, a couple of days here to sort of take it all in. It was a lot to take in, and they're trying to assess their risk, and maybe they thought some of the selling was a little overdone.
Now, President Biden has been trying to reassure Americans that everything is safe, their money is secure. Is that message resonating?
Not quite yet. I think this is all still very fresh for people. And when you talk about the safety of their money, I think people sort of have this visceral, response, and they need to protect what's theirs, which is reasonable. So we're seeing a number of people go to their smaller regional banks, taking money out, even if their banks are not signaling that they're in trouble, and they're moving those funds to larger banks for the time being.
Now, new data is showing that inflation appears to be slowly cooling. This banking crisis comes largely as a result of higher interest rates. So what does this all mean for the Fed? Because we're still nowhere near our inflation target, but will they hold steady now, given everything that's happening?
So we found out today that consumer prices were up 6% year over year, way off the Fed's target, right, which is more like 2% for inflation. So the Fed still has a lot of work to be done, but the banking collapses have really complicated the issue. The Fed now is sort of threading the needle, if you will. It doesn't want to have inflation run rampant, but it also needs to bring stability to the banking banking system. So we'll have to see. Next week's Fed meeting will be one of the most pivotal Fed meetings we've had in a while. Wall Street seems to be mixed on this. Some are saying we'll get maybe a quarter-point rise in interest rates. Some, the minority, saying we might get nothing from the Fed. Goldman Sachs' economist came out over the weekend and actually said he believes the Fed will do nothing for the foreseeable future until the banking system calms down.
So what do you say to people listening to this and saying, okay, what does that mean? What do I do with my money?
Yeah, well, you know, these are scary times, but if you have less than $250,000 in the bank, you don't really need to worry, because as long as you're in an FDIC-insured bank, your money is safe. And beyond that, if you have more money in the bank than that, you might want to think about opening up multiple accounts in different banks so you don't sort of have all your eggs in one basket, so to speak.
And while all this is happening, Facebook's parent group Meta just announced 10,000 layoffs. How does that factor into all of this?
Well, it definitely means that more people may be struggling, losing their jobs. 10,000 more jobs there at Meta on top of the 13,000 earlier this year. You know, this problem is not specific to Meta. They are dealing with a big drop in digital ads. And also, remember, they're trying to pivot over to the metaverse, which hasn't been going too well for them. A lot of investors have been very critical of the way Meta has handled that. But overall, we continue to see this belt tightening in the tech sector. And of course, these two banks collapsing were very closely tied to tech investors. So it's been a very rough time for them.
All right. Alexis Christoforous, thank you.
Thanks.
And if you want to ask Alexis any personal finance questions, you can leave a message on our Instagram feed. She just might answer your question live right here on Thursday.
NBC News has confirmed that the Justice Department and SEC have launched separate investigations. Ken Delanian is here with the details. Ken, what can you tell us?
Chris, three sources familiar with the matter telling NBC News that the DOJ has launched this investigation, with the Northern District of California taking the lead here. And there's no indication right now where they are in that investigation. It's considered preliminary. This was first reported by the Wall Street Journal, of course, which is reporting that among the issues that FBI agents and others will take a look at are stock sales by executives at SVB in advance of the collapse, because obviously the stock has dropped considerably as all this has unfolded. And this is sort of par for the course when something awful like this happens in the financial world. Regulators, prosecutors, FBI agents, the SEC takes a look. But nonetheless, very significant, very meaningful for the people involved. Justice Department investigating, Chris.
A Russian fighter jet colliding with an unmanned American drone over the Black Sea, causing that drone to crash. Courtney Kuby covers national security for NBC News. And Courtney, I know you're just getting this information in, but what can you tell us?
Right. So there were two actually Russian fighter jets, they're Su-27s. They were flying near this MQ-9 Reaper drone. As you said, Chris, that's an unmanned surveillance drone for the U.S. military. The U.S. says that this was over international waters or international airspace in the Black Sea. These Russian jets, according to the U.S. military release that came out of U.S. European Command, the Russian jets were flying close. They were conducting some unsafe maneuvers, and at one point, at least one of them even dropped some jet fuel on or near the U.S. Reaper drone. And then during the course of what the U.S. military is calling unsafe and unprofessional actions, one of the Russian Su-27 jets clipped the propeller of the U.S. Reaper drone, causing it to nearly crash, according to a statement from the head of U.S. Air Forces in Africa and Europe. And then the U.S. was forced to down that drone in the Black Sea. The U.S., of course, condemning this, saying that it was, again, unsafe and unprofessional. I should say, Chris, it's not that uncommon for what the military calls intercepts. So that's when one aircraft comes up relatively close to another. They sometimes trail it as they go along a certain path. But what we have seen with some frequency is these Russian aircraft coming closer to Allied aircraft and operating in what the U.S. and the Allies are calling unsafe and unprofessional manner. And oftentimes the warning at in these instances is that it could cause some sort of an incident, just like the one we saw here today. We don't have any word on what happened to the Russian aircraft. Again, they clipped one another, so we don't know if the Russian aircraft was damaged as well in this incident, Chris.
Okay, Courtney, I know you'll keep us posted. Thank you.